Before. Oh,
Hi, we're live. I totally forgot to kick us off with the right video. This is the day I'm having, and let's just do it anyway. Let's go.
we started out with a blooper. How do you like us now?
I mean, you need one every now and then. And it's so funny. We were just talking about the fact that we're in episode 26 of Ask an Agent Anything and how different it is now from 1 through 6, for example. But let me tell you, it's still live. It's still real, as like real as it gets, which means sometimes we started off with some bloopers. But hi, and welcome everyone. My name is Corianne. I am an agent here in Colorado as well as an investor. You have joined us on Ask an Agent Anything, where I'm here with my beautiful co host and 19 and a half years as an agent in California. Hi, Renee. How's your day going?
Hey, actually, you know what? I think I might have said 19 and a half. It's 19. It's now
Oh,
19.
okay.
It was 19 July 5th of 2024, which where does the time go? I mean, I don't know, but you know what? I'm a little older and a little wiser and just as much in the game, even though sometimes the game gets me. So it ain't no joke out here in real estate, especially with the shifting market. But other than that, how can I be bad? I mean, I took some time kind of for myself, even though I'm working. This is the way of the world. This is how much changed in 19 years. I'm now virtual. I'm in New York City and I'm spending 2 months in New York and New Jersey, and I get to go back and forth. And all I really need is a Wi-Fi, a phone, right? And this computer. And we're locked and loaded. I mean, how cool is that?
It really is. How are you feeling being 4 hours ahead of your market? Has that helped or hurt you and just like your pacing? I've always
Ooh,
interested in this.
it is. That's a great question. Here's the good news. The good news is that I actually have my mornings, so to speak. So, when it's say 8 o'clock in the morning here, it's what is that, 5 o'clock in the morning on the West Coast. So it's good, but then by the time say it's noon, you feel like, oh, my day is half over. I should have done all this prospecting. It's only like 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. So I don't really know how to answer that. I get distracted
Mm,
easily. I went for a walk in Central Park this morning. I know, feel bad for me. And then you feel like, oh, you want to go do more, right? So I would
mhm.
say on a personal note, because I worked so hard, I really did, to get to this point for July. I worked just like almost nonstop for April, May, and June to be able to take some days off, in July. But I would say that it just is kind of wherever you are. That's the beautiful thing. You just have to figure it out. If you go to Europe, you're now like 5 hours ahead. So you're waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning. But here's the real answer is that you find the talent and you acquire the talent and you have a culture for people that want to be on board and dialed in with what you're doing,
Mhm.
aka also having them as employees so that you can actually go and do stuff like this. You have some help. So when you
Yeah.
are kind of tuned in, you're not just starting your day. So I'm better putting things in position for that.
I love that. I work the market I live in. That's been pretty consistent for me and for a long time. But there was a time where I was doing Florida and it was 3 hours ahead of me. So I was up super early. And I always tell people that are getting in from a not the agent standpoint. If you're an agent, you really need to be working your backyard. But if you're coming from an investor standpoint, keep in mind the fact that you have control of that. Like if you need your morning to take care of your kids, work a West Coast market. Find one that's rocking and rolling there, take care of your kiddos in the morning, send them off to school, whatever you got to do, and then call in California. And you've been pulling that off quite nicely for an entire month.
Yeah, I mean, here's I'm my own experiment. I'm my own hypothesis, right? So I'd say if because I want to play and I'm a little like more in vacation mode, it's a little bit more challenging. So I'm just being honest personally. However, from a tactical standpoint, it doesn't really skip a beat. You just kind of work your day around it. So say for some place like New York City where there's always something going on and people like it's a drinking culture. They like to go out at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock for dinner and so forth. Well, now it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So, you kind of have to pace yourself for the time that you'd be taking off essentially in the middle of the afternoon. But, these are first world problems. You figure it out and you just move on with your day. But it's been a lot of fun. And the fact is that I, meaning like the royal I, right? Anybody who's listening can do this for themselves. I can do this. It's not like I didn't think I couldn't do it. I'm more proving it to myself. And now I'm knowing because I'm in it. So this is the lesson to take away, right? You can say, oh my gosh, I have the computer, I have the phone, I have the Wi-Fi, I can do this. But here's the reality. So whenever you get where you're going, and it's not just say a two-week vacation, if you really want to be in a virtual market or you want to, live in someplace else and then work another market, is that to make sure that your time management, it's always about time management, and then checking yourself mentally. Because like I said, by noon is kind of when I would start my day in California, and it's noon here, and all of a sudden it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I feel like I want to not wind it down, but you get what I'm saying? Like it's closer to 6 o'clock or whatever, 5 o'clock. And now all of a sudden it's like, middle of the afternoon. So that part's been a little tricky for me, if that even makes sense. But once you figure that out, then I think you're fine. You can work anywhere. It's incredible.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I want to give you kudos. I think some people out there are like, yeah, you can work virtually, but then they have a hard time even opening their computer in Starbucks and actually getting on the phone. I'm one of those people, right? So I just want to give you some kudos that's kind of extra hard when you used to have to be locked in a realtor's office. You used to have to show up to a place, and those things have changed, and you've really still stayed on the curve of that. And that's what's so important. Now, to everybody that's joining us, hi guys, welcome. This is Ask an Agent Anything, where we quite literally like to open up our brains to you to have conversation. Now, if it's your first time here, you often find us talking to guests. We talk to them about all ranges of different aspects in real estate. But today, it's just going to be fireside chat mode between Renee and I. We really like to invite you guys in to the conversations that we would be having anyway. As two agents, investors, we're always sharing notes as to what's going on in our business. But I want to give you an extra invite to really engage with us on the comments, on the Q&A, because we want to add value to you. And of course, we bring through guests who know a lot, and you guys can always engage with questions there. But we genuinely want to see your businesses grow, and we need to know what kinds of questions are holding you back from that particular future. And you've got to let us know by joining the fireside chat in the comments, guys. So I just want to encourage you to do that. While we're kind of having this back and forth conversation, today is going to be extra chill, but we're also going to be talking about some of the things that we're seeing in our businesses, how the summer might be affecting it, how we see that the election might be affecting it. Those kinds of things is really the topic for today. So thank you guys for being here. So you worked really, really hard to get to a place where you could be on the exact opposite coast from your market and be able to take time with friends, family, all of those things. Just talk to me about what this month has looked like for you, and generally, what has that done to momentum in changing over to the East Coast?
On purpose, I am not in the same kind of momentum, but I'm also some kind of cyborg, because I will literally work until I can't work anymore in the day. And that's not a good thing for longevity. However, sometimes there's a season for it. And there's also a commitment. So I had an end goal, right? I knew I was coming here. I knew that there was going to be friends and family. And thus, when I was back in LA, it's like I didn't really have to answer to any of that, right? I just had to answer to myself. So I don't want to refer to any of that as distraction, but I'm going to kind of tongue in cheek use that word as a distraction. I really just locked in, and there was nobody coming at me for any particular reason. I don't even have an animal anymore. Like I didn't have to get up and go for a walk or do this or do that. There were no excuses. So I would say, because I went so hard, the pendulum kind of swung a little bit, and I haven't gone as hard. But what I've been doing is becoming more strategic regarding the things that I know I need to implement, so that when I do this again, I am looking at being bi-coastal or traveling, and not just being in my own backyard as a real estate agent in Los Angeles, rather more of an investor-friendly agent, is that I will definitely have some virtual assistants, one of whom I do have. And so they're getting potentially trained up, and another one, coming on. as well as some other talent possibly within the astro flipping community, again, to help along the way, because I didn't set myself up for that. I set myself up for the momentum for incoming acquisitions, AKA deals coming in, opportunities coming in with my communication with agents. So that was where my focus was. So I would say that I've lost some momentum given how hard I was going, but the payoff from the last 90 days is still consistently showing up. So it's kind of a quality versus quantity situation, if that makes sense. It's not as many hours I'm working. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that's something to kind of keep in mind in this industry. Again, I don't care what direction you're coming from. The work that you're doing now does affect about 60 days down the line, sometimes 90. So yeah, you're still getting the fruits of all of that work that you had been doing. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I noticed for my own momentum, and let me put some context on it, is that yesterday I took the first day ever lakeside for the summer. And lakeside is my favorite. I love being on a paddleboard, and it took me all the way to almost what feels like the end of summer at this point to enjoy one of those things. And it took 2 weeks of just blocking it out on my calendar. Um, and I recognized though that the fear was that I would miss deals upon deals basically by just missing a Monday. And I came back to it being relatively quiet. Like I didn't really miss anything. It was almost like, why don't I do this more often? Because it didn't take a terrible impact by carving out that one day. I even worked on Sunday and like days to lead up for that day off, but I was still looking at it like, what am I doing here? And I think that might come from, and tell me if you're experiencing this, the summer's momentum is different.
Yeah.
Like there are some people that are going hard nonstop. There are many people who are hanging out with their children at Disney World or taking a break doing this. I think I see sort of ups and downs oscillating much faster this summer.
Yeah, summers have always been kind of funny. I think I'll speak generally, right? From a retail perspective, as far as real estate is concerned and being a realtor, that spring is the biggest market, and early fall can also be a big market. Summer's like a free for all. I say this: do not take your foot off the gas when you're working. Stay committed to yourself. Stay committed to your words. Stay committed to your business. And it's human nature, like we always have a future that we're living into. So, ooh, I'm going to go on vacation, right? So you're already on vacation, even though you're working. That's kind of human nature. But at least, stick to your word. I think there's something in the brain, right? It's a little bit of maturity. It's like a self-guidance. So you're going to get those pulls. You're going to be like, oh God, I'm sitting on the beach. But wait, I'm in my office and that's the worst place I can be. But the reality is the maturity and also the integrity to keep to your word is to pull yourself back to where you are and work when you're working. And then if you can do it, don't work when you're not working. That's the goal, right? But the plight of the entrepreneur is a lot of us don't have help or support. We're kind of out here doing it alone. And so the running joke in real estate is if you want more business, go on vacation. So that didn't really answer your question. That's kind of the general statement, I think, of being a realtor. But what I do see, because a lot of our community does talk about doing marketing and communication with real estate agents, is that a lot of real estate agents and people in general, guess what? They go on vacation, especially in July and for sure in August. I mean, August is like, if you're anywhere near Europe, which is more on the East Coast, I mean, New York City right now is actually kind of quiet. It's really interesting. It has like a kind of a down vibe to it in a good way, right? Not negative down, just like calm down. Yes, it's warm. Yes, it's humid. So people might move a little bit slower in that weather, but there's actually not as many people in the city. People vacation. They go around here, they'll go to the Hamptons, they'll go to the ocean, but they're not in the city necessarily. So it's a bit of a mind trick. I think you've got to recognize that the business that's coming are the people that are working in those weeks that are designated for them to work, and don't buy into the concept that it's just going to be slow because of summer, but also be an acceptance that people are living their lives and they might be on vacation. And so you just want to double check it and not necessarily clock out on yourself. You know what I mean? You don't have to be a part of the herd. You don't have to be like, well, I made the commitment to do the work, but oh, well, no one's working, so I might as well not work. No, don't do that to yourself. So that would be my philosophy about where the summer is.
I love this. Okay, because I think you just took us down what is the most authentic answer to this, which is all about intention. Like you could, surmise from this conversation, oh, Corianne said that people could be on vacation, so I might as well just sit on the couch and watch TV and not make my phone calls. But really, when it comes down to your calendar, when it comes down to your schedule, when it comes down to whether you're on vacation or on the phone, it really comes down to, am I giving the intention of what I would like to create in this time I'm giving this? So my intention on yesterday was to be present with my husband and to give my dogs a great day at the lake. And by doing that and keeping my phone away from me and doing very minimal texting, I accomplished my goal, and I can leave that with the dopamine kick of, wow, I did something for myself, I did something for my family, and I put my phone down. Which means that when I come back today and I'm busy and I've got lots of things to do, I'm not distracted by my dogs. I'm not distracted by my husband. I have the intention of bringing in contracts into my business, and that's what I'm focused on. Now, I'm not saying I'm doing that perfectly, but I do think that is the answer. It's like, at what intention do you have in the time that you're spending?
Yeah. And also, I use the word integrity, being integrous and coming from and operating from excellence. And I got to tell you that I have not been either of those two. And, when I had my day review yesterday about how I operated in my day, in my business, honestly, it was half hearted. I didn't do enough of what I would consider enough at this juncture to move the needle forward. And I just, I gave myself probably 20 minutes of internally berating myself. And then in the evening, I did a meditation and I really just checked in. I'm very big on meditation and just getting quiet and listening to like a spiritual counsel, whatever side of the fence you're on with that. We can definitely all agree, like whatever religion somebody is or spirituality that there is. I'm of the belief that there's something greater than myself and probably has put all this story together. And so I'm going to get quiet and I'm going to listen. And I got a bit of a message, from that. And I can't hang out there too long, but it's almost like my version of a sick day. I know that's an excuse. It really is. But it's like some days are just not as productive and it's just going to go that way. And yeah, I think it's for me, it's like, I'm a recovering workaholic. And so I really have to check myself. I mean, it sounds funny when you say that, but I truly was a workaholic. And in this country, it's how high and how much faster can you go? No one's going to really say slow down. And not really. They might say it half-heartedly, but they're not going to look after you and see if you're actually following through. So it's a slight like addiction for me to keep going and working. And I had to really sit with myself with that. Like I didn't have the most productive day. And, I probably did more than most people anyhow. I don't know if that even means anything, but you got to really, this business of being an entrepreneur it's self-regulating. You really do need to check in with yourself constantly. It's like being your own loving parent. You have to check in with yourself constantly, and then also stay on the path of making sure that you stick to your word and having a buddy in place or a quiet time or something to just be heard. And then if you see consistency is keeping going down that path, now you're on a slippery slope. But yesterday was yesterday, so I can only pick up for today. And I'm in summer mode. I'm in summer mode. It's challenging. I'm gonna say it. It's challenging.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I love that honesty though, because I think that's a challenge that most people have, is when they have a day like that, getting back on the horse the next day. Like, how much time do you allow yourself to berate and stay in that low energy? And unfortunately, the longer you're there, the harder it is to kind of hop back on the horse. So, giving yourself that time, finding what's the reason, doing the breath work, doing movement in general can be so helpful.
Yeah.
But getting out of it, like, is the main goal. Like, don't stay there, right?
Yeah.
Allow it, don't stay there.
Yeah.
Beautiful. We do have a question in the chat, which I love. You guys are always welcome to bring questions. I'm going to throw it up here on the screen. How do you overcome your fears or limited beliefs surrounding being self-employed and building your business? I love this one. Is there a thought that comes to mind immediately for you, Renee?
Um, I have a very old story from childhood where most of our things start, which
Mm,
is I got this, I don't need your help. And I discovered that when I took a program about 10 years ago. And it was like it took my breath away. I realized that that was at the time a very subconscious thought pattern that I made up as a young child. And it's everywhere. If you look at all the equities of my life, I don't have it set up to where I'm really supported with other people. And so I've done business most of the time with a handful of people or by myself. So I'm not sure if it's like it is a limiting belief. It's I wouldn't want to say that it is, but it probably is that um, the age old, people are not going to do it like I do. They're not going to work as fast as I do, and that type of limiting belief. And the truth is that you may have a great idea, but there are other people that can do other things within the business that they want to do, quote unquote, better than you can. And that's
mm,
really how scaling happens, regardless if you want to have a large business or not. And you can look at, Apple, right? So Apple, the product, Steve Jobs was an ideas guy. And he had to have people that were integrators coming around because the little that I know about him, that I've read about him, he was a hot mess when it came to actual implementing systems. He was an ideas guy, right? He was an artist. It's like when you go to the Mac store, Apple store, and you open up it's all sexy. Everything's sexy, right? It's the experience of what you're touching on the
yeah,
product. And he talked about
mhm,
that. But the implementation of actually how to make that happen was not his wheelhouse. And if he talked about that, if he didn't have people in his wheelhouse to help implement that, we wouldn't have Apple. So my point is
mhm,
that I have had a very old limiting belief that um, a version of that. It's a very egoic. Somebody can't do the business as well as I can. It's going to take them too long. I have to go through too many people. It's almost like I'm not willing to go through the process to
mm,
find the right talent. And so that has cost me. Everything comes at a cost. And the cost has been my health and my free time. And so, what I have chosen at this age of my life is that I'm not doing that anymore because there are other things that I want to enjoy. And there are other ways that I want to give back to what I've already learned in my 19 years. So, thus, I will start with attracting talent and then allow them to add on their flavor and flair. So, it's a slippery slope when you're self-employed. I think that small business, self-employed, like one or maybe 5 or 10 employees is, or maybe it's under 25, I think is considered a small business. And so you
mhm,
got to watch, if you're your own individual entrepreneur, what are you going to do to have talent in place to support what it is that you're doing, even if you don't want to scale, but that you want to take a vacation and not work with
mhm,
that
mhm.
vacation. You want to go to the lake for the day and not answer your phone. Guys, it's
Yeah,
really that simple. Yeah.
yeah. What I think is interesting is you jump straight to a business as a team. Like, I think a lot of people think I can be self-employed, I can run a business, and I'm going to figure out how to do it on my own, with that same kind of limiting belief you brought up.
Mhm.
But it is and always will have to be a who, not how, as you move down your business. And I know this from having a very large team and then constricting that down into a very small team, the difference in those feelings. And I agree, is like looking for people to add to your team that are good at the things that you might not be is really a huge push from the difference of self-employed to owning and running a business. Not
Yeah.
always easy. I would say that when it comes to, like, overcoming my fears and limiting beliefs around that, I personally have leaned incredibly heavily on community for that.
Mm.
I don't think this is maybe something I appreciate bringing up or telling somebody is makes me go, "How can I do that better or differently?" But I call my friends and I'm like, "Wait, do you think I could do this?" You know, like, "Are you sure this is possible?" And it's always a conversation kind of back and forth to each other of like, "Yes, And are you making all the right decisions and the smart decisions that move you forward? Because business can feel a lot like just staying in the same place and kind of like running around in your hamster wheel. But really, we need friends, we need people to push us towards, are you running around in a hamster wheel, or are you moving forward in a way that's actually going to progress you? And if I didn't have a community, if I didn't have friends like Renee to go, hey, you know, I don't worry about making me cry here. What am I looking at that's wrong, and how can you help me recontextualize that? In a lot of ways, that's what we want to be for our people here. Is we know the names that are always showing up. We know the names that are engaging with our guests, and we want to see our businesses succeed. So bringing good questions that help you kind of recontextualize the way you might be looking at it through Renee's eyes or my eyes, so that you can move forward, so that you're not stuck on the hamster wheel, I think is important. Or we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't spend the time if we didn't think it was important.
You know, and that's beautifully stated, right? And a couple things that you said, I want to comment on is call your friends. Now, let's break that down for a second, because let's call one, you know, onto you and to me and to the listening audience, right? I implore everybody that, look, don't call your friend that's going to placate you, because that's not going to help. You really, it matters. That whole adage about, you know, the 10 people around you, the 5 people around you, you want to get some good people in your corner that you can learn from, that are doing more of what it is that you're doing, and that are really going to like hold your feet to the fire. You know, that it's always said with love, right? Because there's a mutual respect there. But you don't want to call your friend who's not in business, or, you know, call your mom. In my case, I love my mom deeply and dearly. She's never been a business owner. It scares her. She's kind of risk averse. So she's going to probably say something to me that isn't going to move the needle forward. She's going to say something, you know, loving in her own worrying way. But I am saying that when you listen to call your friends, don't call your friends that are going to give you the answer that you want to hear. Call your friends that are going to give you the answer you don't want to hear, because they're going to be the ones that really understand the plight and that can move you forward. How do you go find them? Look, back to the numbers game, right? It's like, this is the most free for all time in history ever. You can get on all the social media platforms, and it takes time. You know, get in there, DM people, ping on people. If there's somebody you want to get a hold of, you don't know if you're talking to them or talking to some VA that's answering their, you know, Instagram DMs or whatever. But you've got to keep moving. You got to keep moving. And now, you know, get out there, press the flesh, you know, get out at events. Really, business happens with people still that they know, like, and trust. It is not stuck online somewhere. So you make the introductions online, and then you take it offline, and then people can see you and feel you and vibe on you. So that's number one. Number two is the question was surrounding being self-employed. So let me talk to those words, self-employed. You know, Robert Kiyosaki wrote the Quadrant book, right? So it was employee, business owner, investor, and entrepreneur. And so when I hear the word self-employed, I think that's entrepreneur. And these are semantics, right? These words are like a semantics, but let's be clear, they're also defining who you're living into. And one of the biggest takeaways from that book is you're moving into the quadrants, right? So now you're in the B quadrant, you're a business owner, but ultimately you want to be an investor. And so if you're considering yourself a self-employed person, I assert you're always going to be stuck in the entrepreneurial quadrant. So if you decide that you want to be an investor, but maybe you're self-employed and you're working, and that's where your money's being made to become the investor or be the business person, then be the investor, say in your own business. Like, you're not even running your own business anymore. Now you're an investor within the business, and you're doing other businesses that you're investing in, so to speak. So that's a whole other conversation for another day. But I that book has been around for a long time, over 20 years now, probably. So, you know, it's good to revisit that. You can see a lot of videos with him online. You don't have to necessarily read the book, and it'll just quickly explain what I just said, and really decide where you want to sit or what future you're living into. Because if you're only going to ever be self-employed as an entrepreneur, you're only ever going to be in that quadrant. So decide if you're going to be a business owner and or an investor by his definition of that. And if that, you know, resonates, then take a look at that. That wasn't the full question because it was, fears and limiting beliefs, but I just wanted to hone in on the word self-employed, because I think some people get really excited about hanging their name out on the shingle. But the reality is, if you're going to be a B or an I, you really need other people, the business
Yeah.
owner or investor, so decide how you're going to move into those quadrants.
I think that's huge. I really appreciate that. I mean, our words are everything. Our words are creating our reality. And it was said to me, I'm curious your thoughts on this, but it was said to me that your experience today is based off your words from a year ago. And
Hmm.
that generally the the way that you choose to speak into your life now is creating the magic that is going to create a year from now. So if you're only speaking into I'll be self-employed, or maybe one of those smaller words instead of I will be a business owner overseeing a company, those kinds of things matter for your future.
I would assert so. I mean, again, if you're into any kind of universal conversations, what you are thinking and
We
sending
are
out there as
here.
an antenna, right? Like you're sending that out as a message, to tune your dial to like, who am I going to be? And in this case, in a year from now. And that words are spells. Remember that, like speak and spell? Words are actually spells. So as you say them, you're casting out the energy of what that word is, and making sure that you don't just flippantly talk for the sake of talking, like speak because you're speaking into something, right? I know we all just like chit chat in the day and have small talk and things like that, but be mindful, you'd be surprised at what kind of filler you're just saying in the day. And
Yeah.
also the words that maybe are caught in your subconscious are now going to come out in a sentence. So really listen to what you're saying, or ask somebody to say, hey, did I say anything that sounded negative or limiting or any of those things, and just get some feedback. Definitely.
Yeah. Beautiful. Welcome, friends. If this is your first time on Ask an Agent Anything, we are always having the conversation between being agents as well as being investors, and creating that beautiful rainbow of how we can work together to get further, faster, quicker. If this is your first time here and you just want to give us a shout out in the comments, I would love that. I'd love to know that you're here, and I'd love to know what are the things that bring you value in your business. Many times people are approaching me with questions about comps or questions about how you speak to an agent. I think some of my favorites are how do you create a kind of reciprocal conversation as an investor to an agent, or as an agent to an agent. So those kinds of questions are always welcome, and we would love to see more of those in the comments. For today, we are really just talking about what we're seeing in our own businesses, and where we would like to take Ask an Agent Anything to bring the most value. I still cannot believe we are on episode 26. It's been about 6 months of us coming together to have these conversations. And I can tell you my business has grown from the many different just guests we've brought on, and insight, and places that we've taken this conversation. I just appreciate you so much, Renee.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, me too. Right. I mean, I'll tell the audience a little secret. I have always wanted to be an interviewer. When I was a little girl, I was like, if this is a job, like I'm dating myself, but Johnny Carson and Merv Griffin and Dick Cavett and Dinah Shore and all these old school people that were probably like half drunk when they were on the couch, because it was the 70s and that's how people rolled. But this has been kind of my version of that. It's a little bit of like an itch that's getting to be scratched. And I love playing with you, and I'm better for it. It's gotten me to slow down. I don't say ums as much. Like it's kind of a playground for seeing, where this, gets to go, as well as giving back. So yeah, thank you for the last almost 6 months of doing this and consistently showing up. We always say, or you always say, I'd be doing this anyhow. And I feel the same way about you. We're just buds, and maybe it's taking a stinking podcast to get us more on the phone. So it's our hour long each week. Oh my gosh.
That's
Yeah.
true.
And, people have been a real yes to this. We kind of tried this out as an experiment a little bit, like, hey, how's this going to go? We just really threw our hats over the fence, and you did all these wonderful graphics, and a bit more about the behind the scenes on this. But aside from that, like we still just kind of threw our hat over the fence. And I got to tell you that we've really had I think some great guests who have, very robust businesses, a lot of diversity. And not just because we want, the agent community to know about this, but I think secretly that's why half the podcast people do what they do, is because they get the opportunity to really just interview and talk to people that they wouldn't normally get to talk to at length, or give them the time of day. So thank you. It's been a joy this last 6 months almost. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Sweet. We've got another question in the comments. I'm
Yeah.
gonna bring that up. I love questions. Ooh, and it's for you, my dear.
Okay. Can I expand on the quadrants? That is much bigger picture thinking. Yeah. So Melora, go back to Robert Kiyosaki's book. The Cash Flow Quadrant is the name of the book, or quadrants. I may say a plural. He describes it, he kind of breaks it down so the average person can really understand it. And so there's an employee, we all know what that is, right? That's an exchange of your time for money, and you're getting paid by someone else. And then there is an E, is so he uses, or E for employee, S is for self-employed. And that was what you made mention of. So self-employed, in my understanding, it's been a while since I've read the book, so please, if anybody in the comment. S is self-employed, but more like a self-employed kind of small self-employed person, like the kind of person that you would think might even be the corner store, where they don't have a robust staff working for them. They're just kind of like their own person running their own store, and they're working, 18 hours a day, and like that kind of mentality. That would be more like self-employed. You're just constantly on the chase for the next deal or the next transaction, not maybe willing to hire someone because you have a trust issue or you don't have enough cash flow up front to pay for somebody. That's the very shortest way that I'm remembering his definition. B is for business. That's a business owner. So, and if you want to consider your self-employment, as a business, now we're talking, you need some capital, you need some money to have. When I say capital, that would be to pay for employees. That would be for, 6 months, a year, having that under your belt. Now you're running a business. You've got maybe a CEO or, a couple of people with titles helping to run the business, depending on how big it is. That's the short of it. But the investor is ultimately where he's going, because let me put it in real estate language words. So like a business owner might be somebody who's doing a fix and flip, right? But if all you're ever doing is fixing and flipping and making good money from fixing and flipping, but that's all you're ever doing is running a business, fixing and flipping. Really, ultimately, what you want to do is to become the investor. So now you're buying up those homes, and let's just make it for the sake of this conversation, you're buying up those homes and you're keeping them, because that's an investment. It's an investment in your financial future. It's an investment from a tax strategy standpoint. Now you're an investor. You're investing in the bigger picture of what it is that you're looking to create, and effectively off the rat race or the hamster wheel of that particular business. So people that are business owners ultimately become investors within their business, and they're making money because they're investing back in the business. They're not doing the day-to-day, if that makes sense.
Where do you feel like?
Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think we're at least familiar with the fact that like there are ways that we need to step up, and there's a difference between being employed by somebody and being the entrepreneur investor in your company. And I think the hardest jump is we all make it to self-employed to some extent, or if you're in this realm of wanting to be an entrepreneur, the self-employment is easy. We know what to do. We know how to show up, and we just employed ourselves and we're working our butts off to make it happen. And I personally find myself still in that position and trying and moving myself to business owner, where there are parts that I don't have to touch and other people are touching for me. I would love to be an entrepreneur level where I'm checking in every few hours and I'm finding, or maybe a few hours a day, to find out what's going on in the business and if everybody's doing their job. Where do you feel like you are at in that quadrant, and what are you moving towards?
I pivoted my business. So to some degree, even though I say I have 19 years in the business, I was operating in a different capacity. So I'm under the same umbrella, but basically a different job. So I'm recreating myself within that. Anyway, I'm still self-employed, moving into business, definitely. So what does that mean? It's some of what I said here and alluded here, is that I am straight up acquiring training talent. So that would be a part of running the business. So just as you said, I'm looking forward to like kind of looking into my business a couple of hours a day. You can do that as a business owner. You don't necessarily have to be the investor, but you can do that as a business owner. So I'm not even quite there yet, right? I'm on kind of the bottom rung of that. I know what I know. And now I'm looking to basically, I don't like to use the word manage, but just because people can relate to that word, kind of like be the manager. But this is the part where you've got to have, for me, I say you got to have, for me, this is about being a better leader because I know what I know. And so now it's like having kids in a way, I think, where your employees, like these are people that you want to empower. These are people that you're hoping are going to do the right thing. And, how do you impart your knowledge onto them and have systems in place to make sure that that whole thing hums along? And sometimes you can just have one or two people initially. It depends on what you want. You don't need to have thousands of employees, but that's where I'm at. I'm in the B, and then I don't know if it's going to be a year or not. It depends on the talent and my systems, but I would say for sure this time next year, the B quadrant will be humming along, and then somewhere in there, it'll transition into the I.
I love that. I want to just take a minute to give a quick shout out and say hi to my girl Bernie. Thanks for being here. She's amazing. If you guys need a motivational coach, make sure you go follow her on YouTube. I also want to say shout out to Robert because he is always showing up and always participating in the conversation, and he definitely deserves that shout out. And then Alfred, thanks for being here, Alfred. I appreciate that you saw that also as well said from Renee. I've been thinking about this when it comes to that transfer of information, and I'm just going to walk down that route a little bit and maybe get into details because I can't help myself sometimes. But somebody out there might be doing the same thing, is trying to figure out who do I add to my team, where, and what should I do to make that happen. And I think I might have figured it out. Random, but I have the hardest time communicating what I do on the daily. And most of that is because I don't use a lot of scripts. I don't do anything like that. And I'm trying to kind of move over that information to my newest hire. And Loom, if you use Loom and have the AI translation, like where it will automatically set up and transcribe your call, I've been Looming everything I do. And as if I'm on there and I'm on a call or I'm inputting a property or I'm comping a property, I've been putting it on Loom. And because AI already transcribes it over in the side, I can then move it over to a chat GPT or a Claude.ai and say, hey, take this and rewrite it in this format of SOPs for me. And it does that, and then I put it into Notion. So I just name dropped a bunch of stuff, but I am all about the tech. I am all about as much time as I can take back to be on the lake and use AI as, excuse me, but my little bitch, I am going to. And I think that just finding out that I can move over those SOPs to my acquisitions agent by just letting myself be recorded throughout my day, Loom with the additional AI, it's worth the cost. Worth it.
Okay, that was a mic drop because I have Loom and I don't have the AI. So I'm going to try that. Let me break down what you just said again. So I have Loom. Loom, guys, is LOOM.com, loom.com. If you don't know what it is, it's relatively inexpensive. I think it's $15 a month. And that's if you don't go month to month, $15 a month. And then you do the AI add-on, which is another, I don't know, maybe $4 or something like that. So you don't even have to keep doing it for months and months. You can do that as an add-on for a month or so. And then you're recording all the SOPs. SOPs are standard operating principles. So let's pause a second for all the techie stuff. But what Corianne is saying, and I'm doing this myself, is you literally want to create whatever it is that you're doing in your business as a system. And even if you think it's goofy, if you're looking to acquire talent, as I think most people on here would eventually, you might as well do this as you're going along. I have literally been known to do a Loom video while I have like a bunch of tabs open, and I just go, oh, I need to do this video. And if I have the time to do it in that moment, I'll just quickly do it. And you can have a bunch of different tabs open within Loom. So like your face comes down off of it. You just have whatever you're looking at, Zillow, in this case, you're just looking at Zillow, and it's a voiceover on Zillow, and you can show people exactly what you're doing. And that in and of itself should save time, because that's part of your onboarding. So then the other part I missed, what was it called? So then you put it in a chat GPT and it says, do it as an SOP, like do it as a line itemization.
So just by having that video, you're already halfway there on the SOPs, because you can just take that video, put it into however you're communicating that information over to your hiree, just hand them that video and be like, watch this. And first and foremost, that's going to get you somewhere. But the AI is automatically going to list off what's happening in steps. So that's happening inside Loom. Totally worth it. You're even further on SOPs than you might have ever been. I personally also have a system of how I want to present my SOPs, and I've taught my AI what that system is. So after I'm done with that video, I can take everything that AI's transcribed in a step-by-step, and then I say, put it into this format that I am to AI. Now, personally, I use Claude, CLAUDE.ai. And the reason for that is it's just like ChatGPT, except it's a better writer. It's like a better output that sounds more human, honestly. And the other aspect for that is it's got better, how I perceive better security systems. And a lot of the times I'm using AI as a therapist. I'm using AI as a business coach. I'm using AI for things that I would like to stay safe.
Wow.
So that's another reason that I prefer and really liked using that. I've got another one for you, and we've just gone off on the rabbit trail because the goal is to see us move from self-employed to entrepreneur. And right now we have access to, and it's shifting obviously in business and it's becoming something anew, but we have access to using a brain alongside our brain. And I don't see why I wouldn't do that, because I can't always hire. So this allows me a little bit of that. But Perplexity, just like it's normally spelled, but perplexity.ai or IO or something, just look it up. It's like Google on steroids. So how I particularly use this is if I have a question about how many properties have sold in this price range in this zip code, Perplexity can go into the interwebs, it can check these things, and it can pull it back to me. So it is research craziness. And so, for example, if I need to make a post, and some of these things are still in works for me, like I am working on creating them. It does take energy and effort, but if you do it once and then it can do it for you consistently, yay. So I'm going in and I'm having the conversation of what my clientele likes. That's wholesalers, that's agents, that's sellers. What are their biggest issues? What are their fears, their objections, their concerns? And then I take that to Perplexity and I look for the right answer. I correct that answer if needed, but most of the time Perplexity is coming up with way better answers than a chat GPT. And then I'm inputting that into Claude and I'm saying, Claude, take this information and write me the post. Because I've already told Claude how I talk. Here's posts that are like me. Here's what I want my people to experience. Here's the fear, and here's the answer. Now make the post.
Woo, this is a mic drop, girl. I just learned something. Oh my gosh. See, this is what's the beauty of this, though, because, unless maybe you're doing some sort of, well, not even, I was going to say like Amazon fulfillment, but even Amazon needs real people, right? So, you know what? It's not IO, it's AI. It's Claude.ai. Yeah, AI. Sorry about that, guys.
But it is Claude.
It is Claude. Yeah, I mean, this is that beautiful part of people are not going to be replaceable in some aspects. I want to be gingerly about how I say this. And it's like kind of that entry level-ish stuff, that used to bog down people, get bogged down, that will get replaced. So now, in my opinion, when you're actually looking for the talent, now it's like the talent that you get to really support that you want to impart all the information that you have, so to speak. At least that's the way I think, like 20 years later, right? So I've got a lot of stuff and a lot of nuances to things on how to talk to people. We haven't stopped talking to each other. So there's that, right? And now me, it's like, how can we just, in my opinion, I'm talking about my own business, how can I get kind of all that background stuff out of the way so that I can just have maybe like 4 or 5 really solid people, on the team who are now in communication with the clients. It's going to be so interesting. I think when I'm an old lady, I don't know, maybe we're going to stop talking to each other, but right now we're still talking to each other. So we need the talent, but how can we get that background? Almost like having an assistant. The AI is like you're an assistant.
Oh, it is on multiple different things. I mean, for everybody that's joining right now, I'm just unleashing some AI tech that I've been using in my own business. But just a reminder, the reason that we're doing that is because we're actively growing from a place of self-employed to business owner in our own businesses. And Renee and I are sharing notes. She's working on some hiring aspects. I just brought on somebody new on my team. And really, we're trying to find a way of automating and moving things forward for ourselves so that we can be at the lake yesterday and get completely burnt, or go all the way to the other coast and spend time with friends and family. And there's a reason we're in real estate, and the reason is not to be burnt out. The reason is to be able to make money and spend time with family. And that requires an intention when we show up to our computers, when we show up for our family, to intend to be present in whatever that might be. And so I do think when we even walk down an AI direction, it's important to remind ourselves we have to bring intention to AI. Most importantly, we have to know this is the expectation, this is the output I want on the other side. Now, how do I create that? And then just to answer you, Renee, I personally believe there's no way that we will ever be in a situation where we don't need humans at the forefront. The difference is it used to be that we needed humans on the forefront of answering. Now we need humans on the forefront of asking the right questions. It's all about prompting. It's all about how can I bring the right question to get the result, the intention I'm bringing on the other side. So if my intention is to create a great SOP for my new act director of MLS, then I have to remember that as I'm approaching these AIs. And to answer Yoli, and kind of just go through it real quick, yes, I would start by having Loom and having the AI attachment, and I would record the things that I do on the daily over and over and over again, whatever it might be, to be good in that position. Because right now you're self-employed, you're the one doing it, right? Now it's automatically going to AI that into an SOP, step by step. Here's what you did off to the side. And that alone, you could cross this off your list. I also then take it to what's called a language model AI. ChatGPT is one of those. Claude is another one. And I have a conversation with it to make sure that my SOPs are the best, because I can learn from it. That's what I do on the daily. But now I can take that list and I can take it over to Perplexity and say, hey, is there anything missing in this for a system of operating procedure for an acquisitions position in MLS? Answer. And it's going to go through, Perplexity specifically is going to go through the internet. It's going to go through people's SOPs, anything that's public information. It's going to look, and then come back to me and go, hey, it looks like you're missing this. It looks like you're missing this and this. And I go, oh, I just learned in my business whether or not I want to add that to my SOPs. And then I place that in the spot that my ACK person can come see. So it's about me asking the question to Perplexity in this situation of how I can improve myself. I also personally program Claude to put an output of that SOP in the version and format I want it. And that's just because I've learned from it. Do you want another one before we go today? I'll give you another
girl. Okay.
This one's fun and it's free. It's called Notebook LM. It's a Google product and it's AI. And the reason I love Notebook LM is it's where I create my coaches. So right now I have a sales coach, I have a social media coach, and I have a business coach, just overall, built out of Notebook LM. And what you can do there is you can bring in PDFs, you can bring in book PDFs, you can bring in websites. things that you state, this is the resource I want you to function off of.
Hmm.
And then ask the question inside the notebook. So I have uploaded, and I've purchased these books, by the way, that allow me to have the PDF. You can also find PDFs online without purchasing, but do your thing. And I upload those PDFs of those books into the Notebook LM I have on sales. And then I ask the question, hey, what would Jeremy Miner do to this script to improve the initial output? I want the client to feel like I'm engaged and blah, blah, blah. And it's going to go into the book, look only in the resource of the book, and then bring me back that answer, which, as somebody who is an overachieving Capricorn who would like to read 30 books this month and does not have the time to do it, I love it, because I can kind of have a conversation and I can search throughout maybe 10 or 20 different books at the same time to compare that information. It's fun. You could get lost in that one.
Oh my God.
Just saying. Just saying. Guys, this is why it's worth coming to Ask an Agent Anything. We are opening up the kimono on our business. We're showing you what's going on, and we're sharing notes. So thank you guys for being here. If you need anything, whether it's a question to us or maybe you just need a connection to somebody in any given market, this is the place to do it. Always feel free to drop it into the chat. Oh my goodness, that was an hour though.
That was an hour, and may I say thank you to you, because I know that I got some nuggets out of this. Oh my gosh. I mean, I'm going to be implementing a lot of what you said. And as we always joke, I'm repeating myself, like we'd be having these conversations anyway, but it's so organic. Like we kind of had a topic for today, and here we just solve all the problems. I love it. And this is a lot of what, I'll speak for myself, this is a lot of what I've been sort of looking for. It's like, okay, I am going to have a VA, a human being, do some of these things because I want them there. I kind of need like just a body for me. Maybe that's my security blanket. And while I have this person on board, I'm going to ask him to, create a lot of this stuff as well, so that he can also, create some of the SOPs from how he's implementing it. So, oh my God, this is just, wow, girl, you really dropped some nuggets here. I got to tell you, I got reinvigorated from this conversation, because it's like, oh, some answers are coming. Yay. And let me tell you, next week, you guys have got to tune in next week. There's a young gal who's out of Seattle, Washington, who is just a banger. I mean, this gal is doing business, wholesaling. She's got a little team. She's a realtor. She has other people that are taking her listings. She only wants to do wholesales. She's doing it in Seattle, Washington. So if you guys think that, Seattle, Los Angeles, maybe even Manhattan is kind of its own beast into and of itself. But the point is that there are other places in the country that are not as hot to trot. It's not Texas, it's not Arizona, it's not Florida. There are other places that people are making a ton of money doing what we are talking about on this show. And she is on her way to becoming financially free by the time she's 30. And so she is somebody to not be messed with. I've known her for a little while. I've known her since she started, and she's just going off the rails. So please check in next week. It'll tie into what we're talking about today. Anyway, Miss Corianne.
And I'd also want to say that tomorrow we're kicking back off a new half season of Comping Colorado, where we bring you all the information about those two markets. We're more than happy to comp your addresses. And honestly, I love these conversations because we get to kind of just talk about everything that's going on, but it's also nice to just hone into what are the numbers, how can we support each other in these two markets. And I'd love for you guys to come join, bring an address. It's going to be on Renee's page, my page, and it's going to be fun. I've got some thoughts and things to share too on markets. So join us tomorrow.
Yes, I love that. And Roland just said, I remember being 30. Yeah, I remember being 30 too. I don't think I was half as smart as some of these folks we've had on this show. I tell you what, y'all's generation is just running circles around me. I love it.
No, not at all, girl. Oh, we're just all sharing notes and riding together.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, everybody probably thinks you're 30. You might have just dropped some socks.
That's what we do in LA. We just age backwards. I'm telling you. Yeah. I haven't had any surgery yet, but I'll let you know if and when I do.
Well, friends, thank you again for taking the time out of your day. Tuesdays at 2 Mountain Standard Time or 1 Pacific Time, we will always be here and for you. Please reach out to Renee or myself and make sure and subscribe. Smash that like button. You know what I'm talking about. And with that, y'all, I hope you have a great, productive rest of your day and you are locking up contracts.
Stay
We'll
on
see you on
point.
the other side.
Bye. See you tomorrow, guys. Be well.